One of the big challenges for pitahaya production is the fact that some of the varieties that are popular commercially, they are not self-pollinating, or that they are not self-fertile. And so for optimum production, the hand pollination may be required. Ideally, we would like to have a variety that is self-pollinating, self-fertile, and that is the most tasting and is the one that consumers like. But as you might suspect, or as is often the case, those are traits that hardly ever coincide. I recommend growers that if they have varieties that they know for sure that are not self-fertile or self-pollinating, that they should actually hand pollinate. If you don't, you end up with fruits that are very small and uniformity isn't there. If you hand pollinate, you can project your production better, and then you can work with your buyers and coordinate in a much better way than if you don't, because you have a more uniform set and a more uniform size at the time of harvest. Pitahaya flowers, they are open for one night. It's a night blooming plant, and it stays viable for one night. So synchrony in terms of when the flowers are open is important if you're having multiple varieties, because you got to have the flowers open all at the same time. Otherwise, if one flower opens up early in the evening and the other one is not viable until 10 or 11 p.m., there is hardly any chance that bees or insects are going to do the pollination. That's why we recommend people to plant more than one variety, to have a mix of pollen available for either bees or other insects that help with the pollination, but also to have pollen available from different flowers at the time of the to do the hand pollination. To harvest pollen, try to get the pollen off the flowers before bees get it. So normally we will go in and try to get the jar under the anthers and try to get as much of it, the tips of them, as we can, drop them in the jar. And we repeat this, this is anthers with pollen. At this time there's hardly any pollen on the flowers because it's late during the day, but that's just to show you the anthers are there. We're gonna do this with another flower as well. Typically, we like to have a mix of flowers. That way we ensure that the cross-pollination is more effective. As you can tell, this flower here, we're going to repeat the same process. So once we get when we harvest the pollen, what we do, all it takes is we put a brush in the pollen, stir it up a little bit, and typically the brush will come out full of pollen, and you will see, usually if you're using a brush with black hairs, you will see that it just turned yellow. And you want to get a brush that is the wider the better, because then you kind of maximize the amount of pollen that will stick to it. Get your pollen in the brush, and then you open up the flower when it's open like this, and just rub the brush against the stigma. Use that, and typically you can just poke it, or if you want, you can just do a little twist and then move on. Once you have the pollen harvested in a jar full of pollen, it doesn't take but a few 15-30 seconds to pollinate a flower. And I would say that that pays off when you're selling a fruit that on average, is going to bring you, I don't know, $2.50, $3 a pound. Spending a few seconds pollinating it is just the thing to do, until we find that variety that has all the different traits that we want, which is self-pollinating, self-fertility, and great taste and strong market preference. But until then, I think it pays to pollinate.